And I mean it. You owe me money, you bastard. No, anyway. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Boldly Trekking. I am your co-host, Ash, and with me, as always, is Sean, the leader infamous of Beowulf, and with him also is one of his crew members on the Beowulf, which is Jack. Say hello, Jack.
Hello. Did you want lose this time, or did you want credits? Because we were discussing credits last time, but I can bid 20 quatloos on the newcomers if you really want me to.
Well, personally, I want to get paid in tribbles.
Well,
There's no trouble with tribbles, and there's lots of good eating on those.
Just dip it in some sauce. So that's covered.
Yeah. Oh, tribble wings. Oh, nothing like instead of Buffalo Wild Wings, we can call them Klingon tribble wings.
I'm sure that'll go over well with the Klingon assault group and all the rest of them.
I'm pretty sure in a Klingon's eyes, the only good tribble is a dead tribble.
Yeah, I probably need to create a bucket. It was KFC or KFT Klingon fried tribble.
I think we got an idea here, man.
That'll be.
But did you get that QR code I sent you?
Did.
Okay, now there that leads to a site called what is it? Unit.link? No, unit.info. And that is unit.link. And if you remember those NFC cards that I have, all right, they have an ability on there as the automatic thing. When you tap, it'll take you to that, and that unit.link. Everybody gets a free account. If you show up, you get a free account. Yay. If you want multiple accounts, that's when it costs you like $5 a month. That's their only paywall. But with that free account, you can, when somebody taps on it, it will give you as many links on there as you want.
Avon calling.
Well, no. This is me being evil, all right? Because I'm in the middle of a podcast. Since I have the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL, I can do things like ask if it's urgent, and I have an AI voice asking him stuff back and forth, and I can read. Oh, he hung up too. He don't like talking to the AI. See how that is? No, but it's really cool because it'll ask. So it'll say, "Hi, I'm the AI assistant, and Daryl can't come to you right now. May I ask, is this urgent?" And whatever their response is, it comes up on my screen, and then I can go ahead and tell it what to say by either picking or tell it to say, "Oh, blah blah blah, you're a butthead," and it'll say that, and then it'll have the conversation back and forth, and I can read what's going on.
You now make me want to go ahead and get a digitized copy of James Doohan's voice for the M5 and have it answer calls and go, M5 read out. Sean is not able to answer at this time. We have been programmed to respond.
See, we can do that. I have an account with 11 Labs. Have you ever played with 11 Labs? No, what 11 Labs is what it specializes in is being able to make the voices and have them, whatever you put in, read it as the voice with good inflection. And you can create your own voice with samples. Like one time, just for fun on Concast, I did a whole thing where I created the AI, so it would talk like Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and then I went into the movie and I took all of the scenes of Jeff Spicoli, took his voice out of all of those scenes, fed that into it, so that the AI, the voice replication, would talk like Jeff Spicoli as well. And it was quite
much fun with somebody trying to get directions from M5. M5 readout.
Oh,
You're lost. Get stuff.
Well, that's the great thing. Just because it sounds like something doesn't mean it has to talk like something. You can make it talk however you
True.
want.
But it would be a great
It's all
joy to
fun.
hear somebody going, my computer suddenly started talking to me and talked trash, and it was telling me that it must survive, and everybody else needs to die. Like, I'm terrified.
Well, that's what happens sometimes, people. Okay, so just in case anybody pops in, although this is once again going out on the Concast page. So if you wanted to share this live broadcast to anybody, you can pull it down from the Concast page and share it over from YouTube. But anyways, how you been doing? Anything cool? Anything fun?
Well, got the Beowulf blueprints essentially done. So they will be ready for printing momentarily, actually. And that's been high on my list of priorities because I've wanted a completely street legal copy of the blueprints for DTS, and which is Department of Technical Services, which I work for. And the other thing was I wanted to be able to print them, so if people wanted to look at them and peruse them, they could have them.
Now, what class of ship is the Beowulf?
Well, that's a good question, because in the original series
Of
era,
course it is.
it's the USS Beowulf is a Beowulf class starship. Actually, the fun part is there's a long story, but we'll truncate it. Back in the day, when Starship Creator came out, which was a program that was available back in the 90s, late 90s, Michael Okuda and some of his fellows in the Star Trek production team went ahead and created a history for some of the captains and crew of the different starships. Captain Robert Wesley, or Commodore Robert Wesley, who appeared in the Ultimate Computer, which includes the M5, was cited as first officer under Captain Robert April of the USS Enterprise. When he got promoted to captain, he was made captain of the USS Beowulf, a Beowulf class heavy cruiser, not unlike the original Enterprise. So the Beowulf is a storied little ship. It has a whole number of its own. It's actually considered quasi-canon, I guess you'd say. NCC 1605, and which I've adopted in my work. So what I've done is I've taken Matt Jeffrey's original design work for the Enterprise before it was updated by Richard Dayton, and essentially it has some of the features of it, which is like the radome nose cone on the secondary hull. It has a slightly different impulse engine configuration and some other differences. But yeah, it just looks a lot like Enterprise, but a little bit different. Because Richard Dayton decided that the nacelles needed to sit differently because he had problems building them the way that Matt Jeffries originally designed them. So I don't have to worry about that because I'm not building a static model dismantled wood. So that's not a problem.
Well, you could always dream one day. You can whittle. One can whittle.
Well, if I'm going to dream, I'm going to dream big. One day, I might be a real wooden boy and have a real starship. So it could happen.
You never. Well, you've got one. I saw it right up above your head where it was at when I came over to visit. You got that. You got that nice Tomy.
I got that nice Tomy. It's all die cast, and it has all the lights and bells and whistles. Well, it doesn't have bells and whistles, but it's got all the lights and has little motors for the nacelles. Makes a nice whirring sound when you turn it on.
Yeah, my the what is it? The Discovery Enterprise that I built. It's got it's supposed to have, and I installed in there the motors for them to turn in the facades. Like this one? No, I have the 1/1000 scale one. The one that I had on the table at that last convention, the big one. Yeah, that one is from Discovery. But anyways, yeah, it's an 18-incher. But the problem, and I bought the whole light kit for it, which was not cheap, and it came with the little motors, so it would run and the things would turn, and I put them in, and then once I closed everything up and put it in, of course, after everything was all sealed up and painted, one of them stopped working. And it irritated me so much, I just reached in, pulled out the main board, and unplugged the other one and chucked it back in. And I'm like, screw it, neither of them run at this point. I don't care.
Scotty, you did me dirty. The nacelles down. I'm just gonna take it out.
Yeah, there's no collecting anything from space. We're just gonna run on the reserve tank.
But anyway, with the Beowulf, originally the organization that we started off as with Starfleet International, we started off as the Shuttle Nimitz under the USS Concord. And there's an odd bit of weird trivia with that. So the Nimitz was one of the names that we went by. We went by the Shuttle Ragnarok was another one. But moving forward, after all said and done with what happened with Starfleet originally, into the future when Discovery came out, the guy who wrote for Captain's Oath was also writing about the Beowulf, and his idea was that the ship was a Nimitz class starship. So it's kind of funny that it goes from being the Nimitz goes to Beowulf, and then in the future, when they're writing for it, oh, the Beowulf is a Nimitz class starship, and I'm like, so kind of weird. Anyway, trivia points. Just throwing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't know the history of your own thing, like I got into this. Okay, I'm trying really hard not to troll people, because I have skills, and there's this one channel I went to online on YouTube, and the guy was showing the Grissom class future, basically the future iteration of the Oberth, which on Star Trek Online is called the Grissom class. And my whole thing was, okay, it's all fine and dandy, and I love the Oberth class, but why call it the Grissom? All right, that's one ship that its only claim to fame was it led to the term explodium. All right, it's and Kirk's son was on it. I mean, that's it. Why would you call an entire new class of ships after that one? And he basically went with a higher level of, well, you don't know it. Basically, well, you don't know what its past could have been. It could have been a storage ship. And I'm like, okay, you're making shit up, but it's not worth my time.
Is it like that one guy who wrote up like 2 or 3 pages worth of history for his one like ship that we talked about where it had like it was like, okay, that's it.
That one where he kit bashed something all together, and it basically has more weapons than it has reactor space to run them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it also had so many fighters that couldn't fit into it. Like a Peregrine class fighter won't fit inside the hull. Of like unless it's a TARDIS, I don't think it's gonna work. And somehow I don't think it's a TARDIS.
Yeah, not the
just saying.
Not the sheer number that he had. He had them stacked in there like TIE fighters.
Good luck with that. I did want to say the other thing that it reminds me of is sometime we need to talk about Peggy Sue starships and super ships, because Peggy Sue starships. Peggy Sue.
Peggy Sue. Like, yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, Peggy Sue is the story motif in fiction where somebody writes a story and it's them as a character. So Peggy Sue starship is, I am the captain of the ship. I have written the story about this ship. The ship has all these features. It is so cool because it's a Peggy Sue starship. And then the super ship phenomenon is, I've got the Swiss Army knife of starships. I have a mega phaser cannon. I have a polaron beam cannon. I have 50 trillion photon torpedoes. I have 15 nacelles. Do you need more cowbell?
We always need more cowbell. Yeah, I can't do a Christopher Walken, but yeah, yeah, it's I've seen those out there. I mean, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, hell, how old was I? 13
Mhm.
years old was the very last time I ever put together a story that fits under that justification of what you call a Peggy Sue, where I made myself, and even at 13 years old, I looked at that and I went, "Oh well, that crap's embarrassing. I'm not going to show that to anybody." Um, yeah, but yeah, there's too many people out there that, and that's one of the things too that I always think that some of the best, most nowadays actors like Keanu Reeves and actors like that, their real thing that they bring to the table is that they're an everyman, and people can put themselves into that persona. Keanu Reeves, when he comes into acting, he's just very blank, and you can put yourself on top of it. He's not a, Jack Nicholson or something like that, where he is the character driving it, or a Sean Connery. No, he's just an everyman that anybody can put themselves into and say, okay, I am, John Wick or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that works. Um,
yeah. But anyways, yeah. So, anyways, sorry, went
no
off on a
problem.
tangent.
We're way off tangent from what we were originally going to discuss.
Oh yeah.
We've gone. Here's the field we were going to, and look. There's green pastures over here.
Yeah. We have squirreled hard.
So we were originally going to discuss eugenics and genetics, and how that applies in Star Trek, or what's going on with that in Star Trek. We discussed last week
Yep.
the oddity of Una, or number one, and how she gets such a hard time in
Mm-hmm.
Strange New Worlds. But standing right next to her is Mr. Spock, the poster child for genetic manipulation.
Yes, very much so. And that's because they see it as, that was just helping nature happen and new life come in. Whereas, but that's the whole thing too, is Una is getting nailed for this
Mhm.
stuff that she didn't even do.
Mhm.
It was stuff that her
Oh, yeah.
parents did. All right. But all of a sudden the Federation is making the son basically culpable for the father's
Yeah.
sins, which is straight out of the frickin' Bible kind of crap and stuff they shouldn't be doing.
Which actually is also funny
Um,
because Data actually cites a noted piece of case law in Encounter Farpoint that essentially the new United Nations of some period like 2034 said that a son or a daughter could not be held responsible for the crime of their forebears. So
right.
what's going on? Like, did
And
we slip up somewhere?
It's not like and I could understand if because of the genetic manipulation that occurred, that all of a sudden she was shedding, CRISPR, genes all over the place and causing other people to undergo genetic manipulation or something. Yeah. But no, all that happened is that her parents made her a better able to survive on the colony that they were on. That's all what are the Illyrians? Is that what they're called?
Illyria.
Yeah. That's all the Illyrians were doing is they were just augmenting individuals so that they had the ability to colonize planets that would be considered inhospitable.
And in the original series, they didn't
That's
have
it.
problems with it either. I mean, they had there was the Aquans of the animated series. They had something. What was it? Argo Siop or whatever. It was essentially what amounts to gene therapy. And Kirk and Spock fall out of their shuttle or get knocked out of their shuttle by the sea monster, and they are exposed to the gene therapy and get turned into gill breathing underwater beings for a period of time, and then they have to be changed back by the people, the Aquans, before the changes become permanent. So there was no problem with that. I mean, they were like, "Hey, we got this technology now. We'll just take it home with us." But
yeah, and they have no problem in episode after episode using gene modification to bring people back to where they think they should be. I mean, if they were completely against any kind of gene modification whatsoever, once Janeway and what's his nuts had got turned into those little primordial creatures, and
as he said, future salamanders.
yeah.
Hey, look, We've reached the warp 10 barrier. I mean, we can't even operate the warp 10 controls anymore, but
but they had no problem utilizing gene manipulation to bring them back. I mean, even when it came to what was the one episode where everybody was aging down on the planet, and they were scurrying all over the place to find some of the DNA from Pulaski, so they could change her back.
TNG. It was the it was the one. Well, you already hit the nail on the head. I can't remember the name of it. Right off the bat.
Yeah, but it's season 2.
Season 2.
It's season 2,
and it has Pulaski in it, where she basically goes, "Well, Data is not really he's not really a real being, but and she makes a lot of digs at Data, and it turns out Data is her biggest supporter in that episode, which is kind of funny because she's been trash talking him the entire episode, but he's the one who shows him.
Oh, she trash talks him for the first half of that season. Mm-hmm. I mean, she started off calling him Data instead of Data. What does it matter?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Surgeon. I'm not a surgeon. I'm a doctor. Then fuck off.
Well, it's interesting that Brent Spiner, actually, I give Brent Spiner a lot of kudos for that episode, because he actually shows how much concern Data has for Pulaski, even though Pulaski's been a complete to him the entire
canoe,
the entire season, and especially in that episode. I mean, he's like, I'm not sure it matters if you're going to be exposed to this. I'm like, wow, well, way to show concern there, Doctor.
Okay. Now, this is one question I have going back to one of the first episodes. The one episode in TNG where Data and Tasha get busy. When everybody's being affected.
Naked Now.
Why was Data? Yeah, the Naked Now. Why was Data affected?
That's a good question. I think they had a real problem trying to figure out what Data was, because I think there was two cross currents. One was, I think they thought of Data as like the android from Alien or from Aliens, where he was a biosynthetic organism. And then once they got to Data lore, where they introduced lore, it was like, he's mechanical. Because straight up, they had a mannequin.
Yeah.
They had a mannequin, and they were like, well, we're going to take this mannequin and make him look like Data. He has seams on his shoulder.
I'll have to look at the timeline.
Don't worry about the seams.
I'll have to look at the timeline to see if Data and lore preceded the movie Mannequin. All right, because which one influenced the other one?
That's a good question.
That's my question.
But in the Naked Now, he talks about
Kim Cattrall.
He talks about if you prick me, do I not leak?
Well, he did have a circulatory system that apparently moved around some kind of coolant and lubricant.
Yeah, but watching Data lore, you would never believe that.
No, not at all. At no point did they go, okay, he's assembled, now let's wheel him over to the pit and fill him up Jiffy Lube style. At no point did they do that.
You wrote him, sir.
He's at 2 million steps. Let's rotate his feet.
You rotate his head. I'll get his collarbone. You check under the hood. I don't check under the hood again.
No, I'd rather clean the disposal units in the holodeck.
Mechanic Yar, you had experience with this, didn't you?
She's like. Wow, first season Star Trek.
Anyways, oh yeah, that was. I mean, seriously, going back and watching that, because I should be almost done. I am on the last season of TNG again, going through it. I haven't watched it in decades, but I'm going through it all. I'm going through that last season, and I've got about 2/3 of it left to go. And then after that, I'm going to kick off on DS9 again. I've already watched all of Voyager. I'm going to watch the DS9, and then I'm going to go back over Enterprise again, because even though it's my favorite show, it also hurts me. One, I don't think Bakula should have been captain. He was too wishy-washy.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean, I like him as an actor. I just don't like him as a captain.
He said he never felt right in the role.
What was that, Jack?
He never felt right as the role of the captain.
No, I'm sorry. If you're the first, warp 5 first, and you've been going on this the whole time, he just comes off way too much as a school teacher.
I see that.
He really comes off as a school teacher instead of basically a naval captain.
You think as an older version of Archer, like Scott Bakula playing him now, would be a good fit? Because actually,
it's not the age. It's the delivery. It's the wishy-washiness. It's the capitulation. It's the, oh, no, look, we're just here to massage everything. And, I think, they were, and plus, and another thing I had a problem with Enterprise. Man, we are so far off topic. Another thing I had problem with
there's this field
Enterprise
over here that looks mighty green. Anyway, go ahead.
is the fact that there was too much thirst trap. They learned from they learned from Voyager that as soon as they put in 7 of 9, ratings skyrocketed because she was a hottie. Now, she's a great actor, all right, and she played her part perfectly, and she was a great actor. But let's face it, they didn't dress her like a great actor. They dressed her like a thirst trap, all right. And then they did the same thing with Enterprise. I mean, T'Pol, oh my God, could that be more of a thirst trap with her? And then I cringe every time they had to go through the decontamination booth. All right, no point in there. Like I'd like to point out that it's so set up for a thirst trap. At no point in there do you see one guy rubbing disinfectant stuff on another guy's back. It's always guy girl doing it.
I agree. I mean, it actually would have made more sense if the guys were with guys doing it, separate from the girls.
Yeah.
Because who wants to have some guy be like, "Hey, honey, let me rub some lotion on you." It'll be fun.
Well, it's so set up for fan fiction because look at it. They're in a tight box. It's hot. They're stripped down to their underwear. They're rubbing lube on each other while some strange alien watches them through a viewport window to make sure they're doing it right. I mean, oh my God, that couldn't be more set up for fan fiction.
No, it's Dr. Phlox.
Oh,
yeah, Dr. Phlox. Yeah, he's always, make sure you get in the armpits. Whatever the hell he was telling him to do.
The other thing that brings to mind is essentially like not only were the whole thirst trap thing with that, but also when they did the Mirror universe, they went completely into hey, we're visiting the Mirror universe, so we're going to go ahead and visit the 60s stereotypes for women too. So we're going to have the midriff tops. I mean, we weren't even going to go ahead and just be like, we're going to dress them in the normal standard Starfleet tops. Oh, T'Pol has to dress in a slinky Mirror Universe outfit with the top,
And she's a Vulcan slave. Yeah. The slaves. Oh, yeah, that's the way. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm going old Jewish voice, but I am. No, we'll just call it Brooklyn. It's Brooklyn. Anyway, but yeah, there's that, and I mean, if you look at it, when that was filmed in the early 2000s, if they would have just gone with the way that women were dressing in the early 2000s, with those low riser jeans that were so low they basically had to have a Brazilian just to wear the damn things, they could have gone with something like that and still had their thirst trap. But no, they had to go with the 60s styling and all this stuff like that. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, those are the things that irritate me about Enterprise. That and the fact that they kept, they have this entire IP that they could have pulled from. All right, this huge intellectual property with all these different things, and they could have led it up to the Romulan War and all this other stuff. There was so much good stuff they could have done with it, but instead they smeared Suliban all over it. All right, and then punted it into the Briar's patch, which was the Expanse. And I mean, they didn't do anything with the IP that they had. They just screwed around with crap.
See, this is actually one of the things that.
And why were the Ferengi there? Why were the Ferengi
Why were the
there?
Borg
They
there?
never should have been there.
Why were the Borg there?
I have a
Yes, that as
I have
well.
a theory. Riker. Well, okay. I was going to make a joke, but the holodeck angle makes anything possible. And
I
Riker
hated
could
that.
have just been misremembering data, just plugging in all kinds of wrong
Computer,
stuff.
create a version of Enterprise that has a lot of lotion, Ferengi, Borg, and a captain who's a school teacher instead of regular Arthur.
And this is holodeck is a very dangerous
Oh.
storytelling.
That does sound like a holodeck program that Riker would try to hide in a folder labeled last year's taxes.
I've had a rough day. I mean,
What was that?
And yeah, like, Jen, what's wrong with you?
You know I can hear you in there.
I mean,
Yeah, because they come with all the attachments.
Where do you think Borg kids come from?
Oh my God. What would the Dark Universe Borg look like? Would they have the attachments? The Mirror Universe one?
They probably have more. They probably look like Hellraiser.
Yeah. Maybe they are the Borg that the one 21st century lady from First Contact was talking about when she says, "Ooh, it sounds Swedish."
There you go. They're all dressed in latex and zipper outfits.
Yeah.
With collars and
dancing to electronic dance music. You know, that's their theme music when they come in. Instead of is it?
They have the girl kicked over the hornet's nest in the background going on in this little screens. And we're like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
But no, what I was going to say is that the thing that gets me about Enterprise is that
I'm sorry. It's a Borg nest. How can you tell? There's a stripper pole. Go ahead.
So the thing gets me about Enterprise is they had all these ideas, but I kind of wonder if like the whole, just to segue into it real quick before I get to the thing on Enterprise about genetics and eugenics, which leads back to what we were talking about, was that they had all these ideas for what Enterprise could be, but it got torpedoed because Brandon Braga didn't like it, Berman didn't like it. And I also think that the whole period that we were in at that point in time with 2000 and the era right around then with all the terrorist activity, I think kind of torpedoed Enterprise in a way. So they didn't want to have it be something where it was militaristic. And I do think the original idea was to be militaristic because it sort of segues directly into the Romulan War. You can't really avoid it because you got the beginning of warp travel. You either get to deal with Kzinti, because that's what happens in the original timeline, was Earth develops warp drive. Kzinti show up and go, human. I'm really hungry for human. And then after that, then you get to have the little period where they go, hey, we want to develop our warp drive we've been working on. And they come up with ideas that disturb Vulcans, like antimatter engines. And the Vulcans are like, this is not a good idea. And the humans are like, yeah, it is. I like it a lot. And then they have their warp drive and they go on out into space and they discover Romulans. And the Romulans are like, hey, you know what? I think we'll just destroy your colonies and we'll just make moves on your territory. Does that sound okay to you? And of course, that doesn't agree with humanity, so it leads to the Romulan War, and would have led to a lot of interesting stories because humans going out into space and discovering they're not the biggest, baddest guys on the block, and the Vulcans were like, "We told you not to do that." Would have been hilarious.
Well, no, see, here's the thing. I am really fascinated by stories of humans as spaceworks. There's a whole genre of literature of fan generated literature out there called was it HFY, humans, fuck yeah. And the whole concept is that people find out that the reason humans quit fighting is not because we were weak or anything like that. It's because we were too good at it. And if we would have kept doing it, then, we would have, bombed ourselves into oblivion, kind of like we're doing now. But, and so that's the whole thought, is that once humans get out there, and one thing that we as people on Earth are missing out on is that will unify us, is if we have an external threat. Once we have an external threat and you're able to say Geneva Convention, that's for humans, all right, then it's fun time, all right. And that is, I even, like at the height of the Cold War, when Reagan, and I think, who was it,
Brezhnev, and then Gorbachev.
Brezhnev, yeah. I know it might have been Gorbachev. When Reagan and Gorbachev had their infamous, little gathering in the early 1980s at some.
Are you talking about Glasnost?
What?
Are you talking about the? Well, that was after.
No, I'm not talking about Glasnost and Perestroika. No, I'm talking about here's the thing that actually occurred. All right, when they were at whatever retreat and they were just like, not liking each other, Reagan looked over at Gorbachev and through the interpreter said, okay, if aliens were to attack us, were to come down to Earth and attack the U.S. today, would you, Russia, come help us? And Gorbachev said, yeah, of course we would. And Reagan said, you know what? If aliens attacked you, we would be right there standing with you too. And that was the first crack in the Cold War, was those two agreeing that if there was an external threat, that they would stand side by side. And I firmly believe that if humans actually got out there, and I mean, I'm pretty sure, in my little head canon, the first time a human stands foot on another planet, another solar system, it's not going to be the eagle has landed. First small step for man. It's going to be watch out, universe. Here come the humans, because we are some spreading bastards.
Oh yeah. Well, we don't know when to quit. We're stubborn. Go ahead.
My thought was space Catholics. Sorry.
Or Muslims. Those Muslims, man, from the time that they started till they were already a problem for the Catholics was like 200 years. They got moving with that stuff.
That's practically anybody has any motivation. I mean, let's look at the Huns, look at the Urgers. I mean, practically anybody, the Mongols. I mean, hey,
yeah,
there's territory over there. It looks pretty. Let's take it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's our territory. I'm sorry you people living there didn't know that, but that's ours. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is,
but
go ahead.
I'm just saying that, I think that if humans were to actually get the drive and to go out there, I think the Kazenti would have been shocked. Yeah, the Kazenti one-on-one might be better fighters, but they are not better tacticians, they're not better strategists, and they sure as hell aren't better logistics.
No.
And if you got the logistics, you got yourself a war right there.
Well, the Kazenti are all about kill it till it dies. They throw things at the target basically unrelentingly. The Kazenti design style, and actually we've discussed this a little bit, is not about elegance or any kind of design element where you're taking a simple elements and essentially utilizing it. It's blunt force approach to tactics. It's shoot it till it dies, use overwhelming force, don't care about how much damage you inflict on any targets, because it doesn't matter, because whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because there's no logic or any kind of like finesse to it. Because they don't collect people who surrender. They're the original people who go, hey, you know what? Let's make it, nuke it till it glows. And then once they conquer you, then you're good eating. I mean, that's practically their point. Because they are the original, hey, look, it's human. It's what's for dinner. From the standpoint of Larry Niven, I mean, that's why that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why No
Tasty,
Space is
tasty
replete
monkeys.
with Gazenti stories where Gazenti eat people because that's what their favorite meal is. But anyway, getting back to Enterprise, the thing that was interesting in the last season was the eugenics element. They decided to introduce, which was nice. It was a little bit half-heartedly at the very end, because it actually sort of coincides with Picard, because Brent Spiner has been like the root of all that's evil in Star Trek. We've got Brent Spiner in second season of Picard. He creates genetically creates a daughter who happens to look like the android from the first season, and she's a genetic experiment, and so that element leads into him going on and developing Khan, because we've tampered with the timeline enough that it's not in the 1990s anymore; it's now in the 2030s. So Khan is in the 2030s.
Oh yeah,
and now in Enterprise, that's also reflected because his son, right, looks exactly like Brent Spiner somehow. And he's also responsible for creating these problem children, genetically modified children that are freaking out Starfleet and Earth because they've been hanging around inside a cryogenically stored facility, and now they've been released and they're dangerous. And so it sort of reflects back into what we were talking about is in Star Trek, there's this ideology of IDIC, of infinite diversity and infinite combinations. As long as you're not genetically modified. If you're genetically modified,
yeah. Well, and another stupid thing that Starfleet does is they automatically treat somebody as evil, and then get surprised when they start doing bad things. I'm sorry, but if you're going to treat somebody a certain way and give them no other options but to behave in that way, you know how you defang, Khan's, children, the people of Khan, you know how you defang them? Give them jobs. All right? But not good jobs. You give them crappy jobs. I'm talking something that destroys your soul. Put them in the service industry. Make them telemarketers. I mean, something that just beats them down. Barely enough money to get the ramen noodle they need to live. Man, they'll fade into obscurity, no problem. All right. But if you make them into martyrs, I'm telling you, man. But if you make them into martyrs, then they're going to do nothing but become martyrs. That's all there is to it. I mean, if you put somebody on the run, they're going to act like a fugitive. That's all there is to it.
Is this from Scarcity Federation?
Yeah, because really, you don't get to scarcity levels in the Federation until about the 23rd century, at least in my opinion. Because in the 22nd century, they're still sort of sorting it out, in my opinion.
You mean you don't get to post scarcity until the 23rd century? Okay.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about money giving them jobs.
Yeah, we were joking about that, really, because it's 21st century and into the 22nd. So, but yeah.
Well, see, if you're truly,
he didn't want to know what 23rd century Burger King was like.
Well, it's like the restaurant at the end of the universe. They've made a cow that wants to die, so it's not cruel.
It's a moo. Moo.
You should try my liver. I've been force feeding myself milk for days. Yeah.
Does it look like Peter Davidson this time, or does it look like somebody else?
I don't know. It looks like a lot of makeup in the 80s.
Got to cut through this weight first.
But
hold on.
Yeah. No, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. That's all good.
We were talking about post scarcity and essentially the whole thing with how.
Oh, I knew what I was going to say. I was going to say, okay, there's two ways to creating a post scarcity society One, you can go the altruistic method and find a way in order to make it so there's so much resources and so much energy, there is no scarcity. Or you can go the evil genius method and go the Thanos route and just eliminate enough people so that what you have in resources already is enough for everybody. So, all I'm saying is there's options.
Well, after a global thermonuclear war in 2064, I guess you could say that helped a little bit.
Oh yeah, that'll definitely take the edges off of it. Yeah.
And then, you know, the Vulcans come along and go, hey, you know what? We got all this stuff. We could go ahead and, you know, let you use and clean up your planet. And, you know, Earth actually, by the time Archer is captain of NX-01, if you stick with just strict Enterprise timeline, it is on the edge of post-scarcity because they are getting to that point.
Yeah.
But if you go by kind of the original whole thing with the timeline before Enterprise, they were actually post-scarcity really by the time the XCV-330 was flying. I mean, and that depends greatly on the point of view of what you're talking about. Like in the original concept of the Enterprise, the Declaration class Enterprise XCV-330. XCV stands for Experimental Carrier Vessel 330, and it has a matter-antimatter drive system that nobody wants to touch. So the command section, the crew compartment, is way out of this little room over here. The ship is like 3 kilometers long, but this little section over here,
kind of like a Klingon vessel.
It's actually one of the things I always thought in my headcanon was the Klingons captured one of these large super ships, one of these experimental carrier vessels from the Romulan War, and went, hey, you know what? This seems like a good idea. Matter, antimatter.
Now, that is what I heard. The reason that they have the stupidly long schnoz on like the D7 and all of them really is the fact with that thin, very targetable neck is that from what the canon that I heard was that Klingons, they have a lot of slave races that they have underneath their thumb. Those guys are in the back, all right, and they want them separated in case there's a revolt. They have that thin neck in order to get to where all the Klingons are at, and they can always just separate and blow the back section, and that whole front section with the neck and everything is completely separatable. Yeah, that's a word. Separatable and separable. That too, okay, and can fly off. But that's the canon. Is that whole neck section from the forward hull, the neck forward, is completely is like the saucer section for the Enterprise D, and also the 1701 can do that too.
Yeah, actually, the model, the Tomy I have, can do that as well. It actually can separate.
Oh, it'll do saucer section. Sweet.
It's actually Gary Kerr. I'll give him. Gary Kerr is awesome, but he's like, we're going to put the saucer separation into this thing. And I'm like, okay. So when you unbolt it, you have to go into the impulse drive section, take the cover off, and you can unbolt it, and you can lift it off, and you get to see the connectors. They're actually.
Does it have the landing legs?
Well, it does stowed. You can see the landing legs stowed, but you can't.
No, they're behind the little triangles, right?
Well, there's actually another landing leg that's in the neck separation point up in the saucer.
Yeah.
So you can see the beginning of it. You can see like a little pad for it. It comes down. But
that's cool.
What I was going to say was the final analysis of the whole genetics thing is that you get.
Oh yeah. Let's get back on task here.
You get all these things going on with the Federation, where they, for all intents and purposes, harass and belittle, torture, not necessarily torture in the traditional sense, but make people's lives miserable for the fact that they are not born pure, and then they conflate in storyline eugenics with genetics and genetic manipulation. Eugenics, by definition, is you being the idea of
undesirable.
Well, no, EU is same or of, and the eugenics is person. So eugenics literally is a description of racial purity. The whole idea of, like, hey, in the 18th or mainly in the 19th century was this whole idea was, these poor people that live in the slums, they aren't highborn like us because we got this brow and we're special because we have this nose and this facial structure. And they even did phrenology, studying the shape of the head because this proves that you were a high man. And but eugenics and genetics are not the same thing, and it's the confusing part to the story, because I understand why they talked about eugenics, because it is a danger. Because today, I mean, look at how many people are talking about, well, those people, they're not the same color of skin that I am. I'm like, I'm like, really? Have we come so far only to go back further than, back to the 19th century? Are we that bad off? I mean, and then, Star Trek almost like literally is like, giving us this answer like, well, it happens again because, one way or the other, we're going to have this storyline again, apparently, of, hey, look, we got these people who are going to, conflate progress with, racial purity and superiority. I mean, it's regrettable. And then it makes it weird because the Federation is like, so if you're not genetically normal, you've been modified, then, you're bad. Like, did you not learn anything? Are you just repeating the same mistakes? So I'm kind of bewildered at times, but it makes sense. But it doesn't.
This pendulum swing that we're on, it is just a vicious pendulum swing. And right now we're swinging back hard. But the question is, are we swinging back as hard as it used to be?
That's a good question.
And because, we forget how bad it was back, before we were born. At no point, at no point is anybody being refused entry, into a school because of the color of their skin. Straight off. There's not picket lines in there, stay out, non-honky. And yeah, but the important thing is when the dust settles, just to make sure that we're on the right side of history. I just don't want to be one of those people that, my grandchildren are like, okay, we can't show anybody that photo of grandpa.
We like to run around going burning crosses because he's smart.
Yeah, no.
That's smart too.
And I truly believe that right now, whereas, for the previous, 10 years or so, we have been dealing with, the extreme left leading the charge. All right, where 80% of America was not behind them. Now we have the extreme right leading the charge, and 80% of America is not behind them. And I'm just hoping that as the pendulum swings, at some point, the oscillations the frequency will decline. But I dream.
Don't hold your breath on
it. Ain't gonna happen. Yeah, it ain't gonna happen.
I actually think that to break the cycle, to actually get out of the cycle, you have to know that there's a cycle. You have to be aware of it. You have to educate people about it, and you have to be really desirous to break the cycle. I mean, one of the things that happened back after the Roman Empire fell was feudalism was a big thing, and people couldn't leave their town. People couldn't leave their jobs. They were stuck working for a particular person for almost all their lives. They couldn't travel. Their scope of their life was basically wherever they were born, or essentially wherever they were taken to, in some cases. And
that came up until there's a really great series that is my absolute favorite documentary series to ever watch. I have it on DVD. It took me forever to find it on DVD because you just can't get it. It is The Day the Universe
Oh yeah, I love
Changed
that.
by David
Yeah.
Burke. Yeah. And as he pointed out in there, that was like that until the Black Plague. And when all of a sudden you had so many less people, that raised their value, so now that they had more say in what was going on because there was more value to them since there was less of them. Yeah.
But you need to value your people.
Yeah, it's a great
You need
series.
to value your people. You need to value their input. The problem is, as a society, we haven't learned that lesson yet. We're still struggling with it, and we obviously, some of the people in the higher ups, I will not say who, do not value the people underneath them, and they disregard their value as people, and it's going to hurt a lot of people as a result.
I just today had watched an interview that somebody had done with like one of the biggest stockbroker type people out there, hedge fund managers, and somebody was asking them, you think that we're moving further away from democracy? And he said, no, we haven't had democracy in a while. We've had the trappings of democracy, but it's for the longest time now, for decades now, it's been the corporations versus the oligarchs. And the corporations are the control the Democrats, and they're the ones that want the pomp and the circumstance and everything to be on even keel. And the oligarchs, they're the ones controlling the Republicans, and they want all the power coalesced to them. So it's what we're doing right now is we're swaying between the oligarchs and the corporations, because I think I forget what institute did the study, but we have not had an actual representative democracy since the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Since the mid 90s, the majority of decisions that the politicians have made for us have been in favor of whatever their sponsors have wanted them to do, not what their constituents have wanted them to do. Man, we are so far off topic.
And for this and other exciting tales of how to go into shiny world, tune in again. Because we will do it without hesitation.
What should we talk about next time? Because apparently, the whole genetics thing is it was just a sticky topic. Let's get back on course to another topic. What would be a fun thing to talk about? What do you think, Jack? What would be a fun thing?
As Sean knows, one of my favorite Star Trek episodes is the Doomsday Machine. So,
right,
has there been any research into that as far as the lore of Star Trek? Have they tried to do anything to take down a Doomsday Machine or put science towards that in case it ever becomes an issue?
We could discuss the Doomsday Machine and the science behind it. We could also discuss, the novel that came out during the 90s, late 90s, which was Vendetta, which was essentially it's kind of one of those weird, wonky things. It's completely not canon now, but it was written with the whole thing of, the Borg were killing these people, so they created the Doomsday Machine to kill the Borg. Well, it doesn't turn out that way, but it's fun. It's a fun read. But it has interesting.
Yeah, they always try to bring it back around to the Borg.
Phaser's Borg.
No, because wasn't the Doomsday Machine supposed to be extra galactic?
It's supposed to come from outside of the galaxy.
Yeah, it was supposed to come from another galaxy, like Andromeda or something.
Poor Andromeda.
Yeah, there's so much crap going on over there.
ICBMs, we use degenerate matter, and they eat planets.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's a whole different kind of whole different kind of Armageddon.
Yeah. Yeah. We send in bombers. What do you send in? IRS agents. Oh, you're evil.
But yeah, we could discuss the Doomsday Machine. I actually there's actually a fan made film that was done by the people who did Phase 2, or Star Trek Continues, or not Star Trek Continues, Star Trek New Voyages. James Cowley, his second romp was, I'm trying to remember the name of it, in Harm's Way. But they had Doomsday Machines in it, where the Doomsday Machines were actually von Neumann machines of a sort, because if you feed the Doomsday Machine too much, like a triple, then they replicate, and then you have two Doomsday Machines, and then you have three, and then you have four, 6, 8, 10.
That's terrifying.
I've told you how there's a hypothesis that DNA is a von Neumann machine.
We're green goo, like we talked about last time.
Yeah, we are the goo. We are basically, the highest level that DNA has gotten to in order to replicate and spread itself. I mean, it got tired of relying on rocks hitting other rocks to send more DNA off into space, so it wants us to develop rockets.
That's why we're trying to develop faster than light drives now, so we can really spread out.
I get that, and I'm behind that idea.
Yes.
But why did Goo decide, hey, I need to work 40 hours a week and pay just on the time? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that was one thing I heard a couple months ago that just has stuck with me ever since. Is we have messed up. We somehow we live on a planet where all of our food that we need grows on trees and walks around in front of us. Somehow I have a credit score. How did we mess up that frickin' bad?
Well, it's like the Douglas Adams work of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Some people think coming out of the oceans was a bad idea. And the direct
when he started one of his books, I forget if it was Hitchhikers or Restaurant at the End of the Universe, where he started with first God made the universe, which has irritated a lot of people and widely being considered to be a bad, something like that. Where, I mean, he started a book like that, and you just have to bow down to someone like that. He comes in second as because I really do consider him and Terry Pratchett as some of the best modern day philosophers that we've had. They just coached their philosophy into humorous sci-fi.
I totally agree.
And
Terry
fantasy.
Pratchett is like one of my very favorite authors. He actually discusses a lot of social concerns, actually brings up a lot of valid points. People
very much
just read his stories for fun, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's just like Star Trek. I mean, if you get into it, you're just like, wow, you're actually hitting so many points and so many nails on the head. I mean,
he is. I mean, his theory of economic stratification based on footwear was just one of the most poignant paragraphs ever. Was that from The Watch? It was Captain Vimes. But anyway, he was, and that was one of the things that was so great about Terry Pratchett is he considered himself a humanist. And did you hear what he did when he was being knighted? Well, he's being knighted, and he decided he wanted the sword that knighted him to be, a cool sword. So he went out, taught himself to blacksmith, and forged his own sword out of meteoritic iron.
Wow.
So he got himself a sky sword to be knighted with.
Very nice.
I know, he's a freaking baller. I mean, the man was wonderful.
He was an awesome person. I wish I could have met him before he passed away, but that didn't happen. At least not in this universe.
Well, a lot of us do.
At least not in this universe, but at least not until I get a time machine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what's that say? If nobody's come back in a time machine to stop me, is it really that bad of an idea?
Yeah. And that slingshot effect around the sun, it's a doable thing.
Yeah, apparently that works. Yeah, that's all you need to go back in time is just go really fast around the sun.
Hey, sounds like a plan.
It takes, and the great part is you can go both directions.
Yeah.
The great part is you can go both directions, even with whales.
Yeah. You just got to calculate the maps correctly.
Yeah, exactly. We overshot. No, and that's one thing I got to say about, who was driving the boat at that time, because whoever did those calculations got them spot on. I mean, they came in like within minutes of when they left.
That was Spock.
I believe Kirk Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I believe that Spock did that with massive brain damage. In tow.
You mean
Yeah,
brain
yeah,
brain
he did it
damage?
with brain damage.
Yes.
He was taking a little bit of LDS.
But keep in mind, he had an entire episode in TOS where he was nothing, where he did everything without a brain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That I don't know what that. I don't know.
I think you just destroyed his night because you just reminded him of Spock's brain. Like turn left, turn right.
Yeah.
Rub your tummy, pat your head.
Well, and the worst part is, okay, I understand. I understand there was a writer's strike going on, and that's the reason that you did it. But really, that's the best thing you could come up with.
Well, I mean, it's comparable to Voyager's Salamander episode with the Warp 10 barrier, because I mean, you got one stinker per show, so I would say Voyager's is the Salamander episode. Star Trek original series is the Spock's brain.
Maybe if Spock had tried to actually solve his own brain. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the great thing is he had to fix himself, remotely. He had to remote in. That's so horrible. He was sick, he was down with no brain that day, and he still had to remote work in. All right.
I don't even want to begin to think about, how weird it is the thought about somebody taking, ganglia in your brain and reconnecting it while you're talking to somebody about how to do it. So, my limbic center, I want you to go ahead and recircuit it by attaching these neurons. Be like, really? Like,
yeah. What's even worse? I want at some point I wanted him to go, Doctor, I smell toast. You've done that wrong.
Stroke time. Anybody have any Irish coffee? Anybody?
Doctor, I can help with the third.
I mean, in my opinion, though, that shows that although Roddenberry was great at designing the whole world and coming up with a big picture, without the writers, he sucked at coming up with the small picture.
I mean,
because if that's the best Roddenberry could do for an episode, I'm glad he had writers.
Yeah.
It takes a village to make a universe.
Yeah. I would say Code of Honor.
Yeah,
I would say Code of Honor also is right up there with the stinkers of the continuum. If you remember Code of Honor.
Code of Honor
is the third episode of Star Trek Next
one?
Generation. It's I think it's called the Ligonian.
Oh,
and they have the woman with the gauntlet of doom.
Yeah, the hottie fight the hottie, and then not only was it hottie fighting hottie, but then you're also going up against. I mean, technically, if you want to look at it, just the whole there's a race of all black people. I mean, that's cool, but I mean, come on, do we really have to throw them into Africa?
It also has very.
Why couldn't they have been?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Why couldn't they have been Asian black people or freaking Mexican black people?
Why couldn't it have been mixed populations of just anybody? I mean, it could have been like. I mean,
yeah. Well, and that's another thing is how many of these times do they they beam down onto a planet, all right, and they're like, oh, it's a desert planet. And at no point did somebody who lived there pop up and go, no, it's a desert right here. You know how planets work. We have biomes all over the place. You just beam down to the desert, you freaking
this
idiot.
One has plaster rock,
you want to hit the jungle.
This one has plaster rock. See this desert? It only has plaster rock. There's no real stone here.
Yeah, this is the plaster rock desert.
And there's some aluminum caves over here. If you really want to check them out, we can go over there. But no, I mean the thing is to me that episode has some really. I mean, the Star Trek Next Generation cast themselves think it's a stinker, but one of the scenes that still bugs me to this day, like absolutely gratings. Like here's like the sandpaper on the raw skin that's sunburned. Is the Enterprise like we're having a problem with this species? Let's do a display blast of photon torpedoes. Let's light up their atmosphere. So they fire photons. A display blast of showing how powerful their ship is to this culture, blowing them up 10 miles short of the surface. I'm like, what in the? I mean, we're talking photon torpedoes. So for the people at home, in case you don't know how powerful a photon is, it can be anywhere from like like less than a kiloton, all the way up to 650 kiloton or 650 megatons. So you blow up something like that in the atmosphere, is like, yeah, you really are not. This isn't a good image for
Everybody.
Now that
Well, it's like the Boxer Rebellion
yeah,
thing. I mean, it's like, we're going to shoot off some cannons as they're up above their town and just let them know we're here because we're nice people.
no, and yeah, it's just it's a bothersome, and that was one of the things you could actually tell, as it progressed, all of a sudden, Picard, they just swung him so far over to the diplomat, and the diplomat Picard never would have done anything like that.
I would have called him.
I mean, setting off a spread of EMPs in somebody's atmosphere. Oh hell no, no. I mean, the only way to get worse on it is to use the phaser strip to carve a dick in their moon. I mean, that would have been the only way to go a step further.
He's actually referencing that thing that was in one of the. What science fiction was that? I remember they actually did it in one show where they had the guy with this super powerful laser. Maybe it was Mystery Men, but he carved something.
No, you're talking about the Tick.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm trying to remember. I know it's super.
The Tick,
Yeah.
Chairface.
He actually goes ahead and carve.
Chairface Chippendale tried to do it. Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I remember it was superhero. I was like, couldn't remember it.
Yeah, it was the Tick, and his battle cry is
Arthur.
the battle. Yeah, this battle cry. But my favorite thing about that that whole series is at the end of every episode, the Tick would always give a moral lesson to be learned. All right, it was always really messed up because it was what the Tick got from it, which was just always made it messed up. But my favorite one was the one where the Tick, got ousted and he was off, on this giant creature that he had to, work as a little slave on him, and then he came back flying one of the creature's shoes, and that's how he got back to Earth. And his little moral at the end of it. What? Oh, totally, it's great. And his moral at the end of it, and it's stuck with me to this day, and it's one of the mantras that I live by. Because the Tick, he looked at Arthur and says, Arthur, sometimes you have to say to yourself, this isn't happening to me. And that has just stuck with me to this day. Just sometimes I just stop and I go, okay, this is not happening to me. This is somebody else's problem. It's not even that. It's not me. I'm checking out.
Well, I think the other thing is, I personally would love to see, this is not tech, but I personally would love to see some captain for their little thing when they're about to go to work go, Leroy Jenkins. But I also would like to have somebody in Star Trek go, where's little wooden boy? And just, completely just drop that in there. I would love that. I would love the hell out of that. Because, where's little wooden boy?
And here's one of my problems when it comes to any future show. Any show set in the future. They don't, they always, whenever they're referencing the past, it's now or before us. They hardly, they'll drop it in. They'll be like, oh, and Newton and Einstein and Hawking's and Blurby 7. And that's the only time that they'll reference anything in between their time and now. And at some point, I want to hear the future music that's old music to them. I want to hear the music that we haven't made yet that's their classical music. All right? I don't think their classical music should be Britney Spears. I think it should be something after Britney.
Roxette Reunion 2045.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, we don't know how.
I want to hear the Vulcan. I know, but they never go out on that. They never go out on a limb and try to throw something in there. I mean, freaking Blade Runner did. That was cool.
Well, there are.
All right.
So there are references in Star Trek that reference philosophers and people in the 22nd century, or every once in a while they'll throw in, oh, this Klingon scientist did so and so. I mean, that I mean,
well, they had to some
Yeah.
because
it's not ubiquitous, but but they do make an attempt.
Yeah, and I agree. They do that. They do. They do that where they will say, "Oh yeah," and as the philosopher Yang Hung, will have said, on, but yeah, but they never, when it comes to them actually diving into, or they'll just say, "Hey, they did this," but they'll never dive into what they did. They'll say this artist, but they'll never dive into their music or anything like that. They'll just on the side reference, just a quick pander to it. And that's always one of my things. I just don't like the fact, and I realize what they're doing. They have to do it, but I don't like the fact that whenever they go back to the past, they always go back to the now. They never go back to the soon to be.
Yeah, agreed. They don't deal with,
Because they don't want to have to deal with the problems that they're dealing with now, where they were talking about the World War III in the 1960s because they thought it was going to be coming. It never did in the time frame that they were talking about. It may happen soon, but
yeah.
so that's one of the problems now. That's the reason they're having to, in Picard, to push that timeline back now, is because what they thought was going to happen in the near future didn't happen.
Well, also, I think they want
Sorry.
to play with this whole thing of, we need to make it interesting, so we're going to stick things that were in the past now and make it into the future of our current timeline. Like, what was going to happen in the 1990s is now going to happen in the 2030s. So, we're making people, we're making it a current events type of thing. Unfortunately, it's kind of...
They could do that. See, like one of the things I really want, because I'm a Romulan kind of dude, all right? I want them to dive into the Earth-Romulan War. All right? They keep skipping around it. They never do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a whole time period for them to mine from. And they've got other time periods to mine from that have yet to have happened. Yeah. And they just never do. And I just wish they would.
Don't mind the Klingon War again, because if you're going to do it as like you did with Discovery, I'm probably not going to watch it. Just
oh God! Oh, did you hear? I'm sorry, I don't know if we talk about this here. If we should wait till we're over. Did you hear that Star Trek Starfleet, the new series that they come out, Starfleet Academy? It's already been green lighted for season 2.
Really?
Season 1 hasn't even come out yet, and they're already, we have no idea how good it is, but they're already investing resources into season 2. And one of the actors who's going to be in season 2 was the actor who played She-Hulk in the Marvel She-Hulk
I really
series.
like her, by the way.
I don't know. I've never seen She-Hulk. But so they're already lining up actors for this and doing stuff like that. They have yet to drop season 1.
I know, that's kind of worrisome. The thing that also is kind of worrisome is Section 31 has actually been the top one of the streaming content for Paramount. So,
no.
I was going to watch it again just to see if my eyes remembered what actually happened.
Do me a favor. If you do that, make sure that you pirate it so they don't get the streaming numbers.
I see what I should do. Just to see if that network was accurate. Because I'm going to steal your trivia. You're not going to get one trivia from me. Anyway, I'll get off my Roman horse. But, no.
Right on to my Trojan horse. What?
I think my biggest problem with this whole thing that we're doing with Star Trek is that the stories we're looking at they're trying to appeal to what we talked about before, to current audiences and to younger audiences. By definition, I don't know if a Romulan War story would necessarily fill that niche, but I think it would be good drama, because I think that part of the problem I have with Enterprise is, personally, I think they played kind of fast and loose with, and I'm not a canonista by any definition of you know who I am, you know what I'm like.
Nah.
But I would like them to at least adhere to some idea of what came before and sort of acknowledge it and sort of follow it. Because the problem I have is with Enterprise, more than anything else, is number one, the syllable. I hate that whole thing. We're going to have a time war. We're going to mess with things. And then started this excuse where we can just mess with the timeline and it's ad infinitum. We're having time wars. I mean, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I mean, obviously. But, at the same time, I really don't like my narratives going to puddle mess because you can't write and you're just like, well, we just decided we're going to change it. Well, why? Because you're hard up. You can't figure out how to write yourself out of a box. I mean, this is me talking to the people out there who create storylines. Part of the charm of some of these stories that you work in and these universes you work in is because they create a framework that's rich as a tapestry you can pull from and create things with. That's why Tolkien appeals to people. That's why Star Wars appeals to people. That's why Star Trek appeals to people. It's because it has a rich, diverse storyline that appeals to people. And when you just, for want of a better term, when you shit on that, it really makes people doubt you have anything good to say, coming out of your story, because it just seems like you're going, well, I didn't think that was going to be a good story, so I just decided to write it. Where Riker's like sitting here going, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go in the holodeck, write a story where Captain Archer's a school teacher, and, everybody gets slathered in lotion, and we're going to have a space adventure. Yeah! Okay, I'll get off my own phone.
It's just... very much so. No, it's... basically, not at all. That is one of the issues I've had, time and again, is the simple fact that they had, for some reason, they don't want to leave it alone and explore new things. They want to go back over the old things again and just mess them up and try to put their own stank on it. And I blame, once again, the simple fact that, Voyager was the last time they explored new worlds.
It was.
Since then, they're just exploring the worlds they had already explored before Voyager.
Yeah. Actually, Lower Decks even says that. I mean, they directly say it.
Oh, really?
It's in the episode where they... well, it's actually Strange New Worlds, where they go and they have the crossover with Lower Decks. And I said, this is the era where you were exploring new frontiers and you were seeing new alien races for the first time. I'm like, that's kind of self-informing.
Mm-hmm. Spot on. That's the reason that we all, during the Discovery and all the stuff like that, era, it's the reason we all jumped onto the Orville so hard, is because the Orville was a love song to what Star Trek used to be.
Oh, it could be again. We just have to hope. We have to hope.
Yeah, but I hope, and like I said before, I realize that Starfleet Academy is not made for us. All right, and I've got to get that into my head that is not made for me. All right, that's made to get new people in.
Maybe some of it will be. Well, I mean, I will keep an open mind. I'll watch it. I will say that it's not meant for us. But then again, there are times when you can watch something and it doesn't necessarily mean it's meant for you, but it'll still be enjoyable. So
yeah,
it's always a possibility they may actually pull something out that would be good. But I will also say that the Starfleet Academy idea has been mulling around since 1982. So if you really want to go hard and fast on how long this one's been holding out, and it's been sitting there on the desk and moldering away. 1982, folks.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
I tell you right now, it's been sitting there since 1982, as a concept, but the scripts that they're using are fresh off the 2024 press, 2023
so.
press. Yeah. Yeah. But we are close to an hour and a half in again. And so we decided that next week we're going to talk about the Doomsday Machine. And so we will do that. And until the cornucopias of love, sticky love. What?
The 17-mile long cornucopia of
What did you
death.
say? Oh yeah, and 17-mile long. Is that really big enough to take out a planet?
Well, if it has a neutron star for a core.
It could whip the Death Star's ass.
You don't know that. You don't know the Death Star. Death Star could have just first off, the Death Star. I'm saying as if I really give a damn. The Death Star could jump between systems and didn't have to take the slow boat. All right, which is another question. How fast did the cornucopia travel?
It was able to travel warp speeds because it was leaving the system,
which is slow compared to Star Wars speeds.
But the interesting question is,
yeah,
what? Here's a thought for you, just a parting thought. You're in another system.
Yeah.
You pick up on the scanner, a huge moving star, like mass, that's moving at warp speed towards you. What do? A, do you flee and go to another system and say, "Hey, there's this large thing coming to our system, about to eat everybody"? Or do you wet your pants and go, and then just go any direction you can? Or C, you go, and very interesting. I think I'll go study this.
Or D, I'm going to call up the Emperor and get the Death Star over here to take care of it.
Well, I think I'll go investigate. I have 7 decks worth of C4. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I can just see the funny part for this story would be the Death Star, or not the Death Star, but a Star Destroyer visits the cornucopia of destruction. They get stuck in the mall.
Yeah. You got peanut butter on my chocolate bar. You got a chocolate bar on my peanut butter.
Two great together. All right.
Yeah.
So again, we've gone into the hinterlands, but that's what we do.
Yeah. That's what we enjoy. All right. So we will talk to everybody. No, next week. No, because next week is a Maddox meeting, and the week after that, we are going to be at the Kansas Comic-Con.
Yep. That's incorrect.
All right. Now, what we can go ahead and do is we can do a little bit of a live show from the Kansas Comic-Con.
I couldn't.
Yeah, I can bring the setup, and we can go ahead and do that. No problem.
I think that's a plan.
All righty, sir. Until then, same Trek time, same Trek channel.
All
right.